Hello and welcome to this episode of the World's Best Coaches series, the series where we go around the world and we interview the best of the best when it comes to coaching. Today, I am joined by Tony Martignetti. He is the founder and chief inspiration officer of Inspired Purpose Partners, and he is also the host of the Virtual Campfire Podcast. Tony, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, and welcome to the series. It's a new series that we're doing, but yeah, we're very excited to have you and a few new guests on. But I'm just going to hand it over to you to give yourself a little bit of an introduction and explain what you do.
Wonderful. Thanks to having me on. This is really going to be a great conversation. And just to give you a quick overview of who I am and what I do. And, obviously a coach. I do a lot of leadership development. And I focus a lot on what I call outlier leaders. These are leaders who think outside the box. They're usually very technical or creatives, but they are usually misunderstood by other people. And I help them to make a big impact without burning out in the process. So I came to this after a long career working in biotech and life sciences in general. And it's an honor and a pleasure to do the work I do now.
Amazing. So tell me a little bit more about your journey, the start of it, that kind of stepping into the coaching. How did you find that? What was it like?
Yeah, it was not an easy path. It was one of those moments where, you start to get really frustrated with the world you're in and realize that maybe there's something missing. I was working in a finance and strategy role. In fact, I was a CFO for a company for a period of time and working in a really amazing industry, but there was a feeling of something was missing.
Yeah.
And, I went through a period of being burnt out, feeling frustrated. And then all of a sudden started to realize I had to change course. I had to figure out what was wrong. And I started working with a coach briefly and started to feel the sense of like, wait a minute, like this is interesting. I don't know why I've missed this for so long. And just little glimmers of hope started to show up. And then I had a moment where I was sitting in the boardroom of a biotech company after having those little sparks of inspiration coming from my coaching sessions. And I decided that I had enough of working in the world I was working in. And I decided to get up and walk out of that boardroom and start a new path. And that new path was to really work with leaders to help them to show up differently and to inspire people, not just treat people like cogs in a machine.
Yeah.
And so that was the start of my coaching journey. I didn't know that I would be a coach, but I decided that was going to be the way that I would help people. Now, it wasn't an easy path, so I'll talk more about that in a moment.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about your style of coaching. It's now because I've had the privilege of meeting hundreds of coaches over the years, and each one has their own way of doing it, their own methodology, their own strategy. Tell me a little bit more about yours.
Yeah. So let me start by sharing a little bit about my purpose, and that will tell you about my style. So my purpose, as I've come to know it, is, because I'm an artist at heart, and this is something that I came to connect back with as my childhood dream was to be an artist. And then I stuffed that down and stopped doing all that because, hey, I needed to pay the bills, right? But my purpose is to unearth the masterpiece in each person and to help them to express more of their artistry in the world. And what I've come to see is that each person has this light that's been dimmed, this beautiful piece of light that needs to be brought to the surface. And what's happened is we just let life build up all of this residue on top of our masterpiece.
Yeah.
And what I do in my style of coaching is about really being a compassionate and being compassionate and accountable to the people who I work with, helping them to see their brilliance, to unearth their brilliance, but also holding them accountable to be on their edge, to expand their capacity, to see that what they've got inside of them is something worth showing. And oftentimes that's hard work. So the accountability part is really hard, but it's also the part that really keeps them thinking there's more that's possible for me, just like I had that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's a really important word there, which is accountability. And it's
Mm.
so massively important these days to keep each other accountable in business. And I think a big part of coaching is, you're not there to just, teach people necessarily. You're there to allow them to set goals that they didn't think they could set. And also then keeping them accountable daily, weekly, monthly to make sure that they're on track to these goals. And it's, yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in the UK, we have, I've worked with a few coaches here, and there's a lot of kind of misconceptions around the idea of business coaching, in the sense that I have my own business and I'm having to let you as a coach come in and see my child. It's my baby that I've maybe grown for the last 20 years. And some people are a little bit closed off. Have you ever come across any of those kinds of, misconceptions?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely elements of this, which is to say, not everyone, not everything that you hear from a coach or from anyone else is meant to be acted on, right? You have to be your own filter of what you hear. And that's why it's important to choose your coach wisely. And you have to resonate with the person who you're meeting with. And oftentimes, even the conversations are parts of like, a back and forth. It's called co-creation for a reason, because I may say something that isn't right. And that's okay. And oftentimes I might challenge somebody and it might be the wrong direction for them, and that's okay. And so we have to be detached from what we put out there in the world as a coach, and know that the business owner or the person who's receiving the advice or receiving the guidance from the person who's offering it, they know themselves better than anyone else. But what you're doing is you're catalyzing that learning, you're catalyzing that experience. And that's one of the things that I think is it's come back to one of the gifts that I give to people is a sense of being a grounding presence for them, giving them a space to share and be open, but also expanding their thinking. And that's one of the things that, I'm not didn't come into this work thinking that's what I would do, but it's just what I've given people is a sense of a space to expand what's possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you mentioned connection there, and I'm going to guess that most coaches on this planet have come across a situation where they don't necessarily connect with a business owner that maybe needs their help. Talk to me about that a little bit. What if you don't connect necessarily on a level with the business owner? Would you say, okay, maybe we're not right for each other in this moment,
Yeah.
and I'll recommend you to someone else? Or
100%. I mean, absolutely. I would say there's an element of like, even though when you're just getting started as a coach, there's this eagerness to say, like, I need to do this, I need to get like clients. They're getting the wrong client can be a bad experience. And it can also be a real ding to your confidence and to your, ego of, how can I be a good coach if I'm not helping this person? Well, it could be because you have a bad fit.
yeah,
And so the thing is, we have to be able to filter out the people who aren't right for us.
yeah,
And so whenever I get on a chemistry call, and there's a reason why we call them chemistry calls, is because we want to make sure that we're connecting with people who we feel an energy with. We feel like we could have conversations with, and that we feel like not just that we can help them, but that we feel like we can engage in a deeper conversation with this person. That's
absolutely.
important.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really important. Tell me a bit about your books that you've released. I want to hear about them.
Yeah. Well, my first book is called Climbing the Right Mountain.
Yeah,
And, when I think about that first book, it was really a reflection, not just on my own journey, but also on the things that I was hearing from other people, the people who came to me and the people I had conversations with along the way. And it's really about redefining our path to success, our own definition of what does success look like. And oftentimes we climb because that's what society says success looks like. But we need to redefine it for our own self. And so sometimes we have to pause along the climb up the ladder and say, is this what I really want? Do I enjoy this process, or am I waiting to some end result to be happy, to be fulfilled? So there's some guideposts in there to help you along your journey.
that's amazing. Well, I hope everyone goes and checks it out. I will
Yeah.
sure go and check it out myself as well.
Yeah.
Great. So, If I was about to step into the coaching world myself, I'm coming out of corporate, I'm going to become a business coach because it's a passion and I want to give back. What kind of advice would you give me starting off that journey now at the beginning?
Yeah. Well, the two things I would say, and there are two quotes that have driven me and continue to drive me today. Number one is that amateurs compete and professionals create. And what I mean by that is that when you come from a place of competing with others, feeling like you have to close yourself off to people who are like you or who are in the same field, what happens is you're limiting your possibilities. You're becoming scarce. And in fact, many times you're going to lose out on opportunities. The best thing you can do is connect with people in your field, make it feel less lonely, and you have an opportunity to create together. You expand possibilities. And I think for me, I learned that, after a few, early days of struggling, that the more I talked with other coaches, the more I talked with other leadership development professionals,
Yeah,
I learned a lot and I got a lot of referrals and I got a lot of business from them and collaborated with them. So I think that's a powerful lesson. And then the other one is, if you're willing to feel everything, you can have anything. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of emotional challenges in going off on your own and starting a business and
yeah,
just being an entrepreneur. It's an emotional roller coaster, and you have to be willing to feel the ups and downs and realize that it's a long journey to success. You're going to have moments when you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to have moments when you're feeling really challenged, but know that this is temporary and it's all part of the journey of becoming the person you want to be.
yeah. Being open to learn constantly, learn from your mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes as well.
Mm.
Be incredibly receptive to that kind of things. But on the topic of entrepreneurship, let's say there's a student coming out of college right now, or maybe coming out of high school that wants to go down that entrepreneurial journey. They've had the seizure. They feel like they want to do it. What kind of advice would you give to them at the beginning of that daunting journey ahead?
I say the first thing is like get out there and have more conversations,
Yeah,
talk to people, be curious, connect with other people, because the more you get engaged with other people in the industry, in industries in general, then the more you understand yourself, you understand how you're going to make an impact. Because people have this like image of the entrepreneur, the solo entrepreneur who makes a big impact in the world, and the reality is nobody does it alone. And most of our good ideas, although we think they're solo endeavors, oftentimes it's because we've come in contact with other people who think different ideas that then make us think differently.
yeah.
So the more interactions, the more connections with other people, and the more we open our minds to new perspectives, then the better we're going to be as entrepreneurs or as leaders in general.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what's the plan for you in the future? You have two books, you have your podcast, you have your coaching firm. What's the vision like for you at the moment?
Well, for me, it's about creating, well, another book. I have another book that I'm
Oh,
thinking about,
amazing. Good.
which is awesome, but also doing more in-person retreats and
Okay.
more experiences for people to get together. I'm a big advocate for, deeper connection and finding ways for people to come together and to understand their stories in person. Because I feel like connection is, in the workplace especially, is the thing that makes us progress better as a human society. So the more we can do that in person, especially, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, I've been quite open to doing some of them. I believe
Mm.
that, yeah, the in-person stuff is really important. In this virtual world that we're in, it's difficult sometimes to do more of that. But yeah, that they are massively important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So looking ahead, the world is changing quite a bit. I'm sure that your business approach and your coaching approach changes sometimes. How do you model yourself around that? Do you change up to kind of adapt to the kind of the way the market is working at the moment?
Well, it's kind of similar to what I just said earlier about this idea of connecting and being open-minded and being curious about other people, always having conversations and understanding where what are people up to, how are people talking about what's happening next, and being not being too rigid about who I am.
Yeah.
I think there's a sense of being adaptable, taking AI and ensuring that that becomes part of how I work with my clients. And if we feel like we have to stay the same, we have to continue to do the same work over and over again, then we're ultimately going to be left behind.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about staying open and adaptable is the key to success, not just in my business, but also as a human. So I think for me, that's really where I'm leaning into.
Amazing, amazing. So is there a book that you've read over your time that you found incredibly influential that you would recommend everyone to read?
Wow, I there's so many. Um, but there's one I'm reading right now again, which it's so top of mind that I just feel like compelled to share.
Yeah.
And it's Anti-Fragile
Okay.
by Nassim Taleb. I can't remember his last name, um, but I have to look it up. But Anti-Fragile is such an amazing book because it actually is on so many levels. It talks about how we as a society, as an individual, can create ways to be more resilient, to be able to stay above the fray of like chaos and all the things that happen in our world. And I think there's so many parts of it that I resonate with right now. Is the sense of like it's not about the outside world; it's also about creating our own sense of connection to what's important for us and ensuring that we create a way to bounce back for our own well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, amazing. It's been a privilege to have you on and have a chat about your expertise in history and stuff. Where can people find you if they'd like to kind of reach out?
Well, the best place is probably my website, which is ipurposepartners.com. And that's an I with letter I, not the I. And the other place you can find me is on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. I'm always sharing content.
Great.
So, yeah, those are the places to find me.
Amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fantastic.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me on.